Welcome to On the Front Line with AI. This podcast series examines how artificial intelligence is being used to combat money laundering and other types of financial crimes. In this edition, we're focusing on how financial institutions are adopting AI to stop financial crime and reduce related risk. We're going to talk about how AI has been put to work, what barriers there are to adoption, how regulators are responding, and what the experiences and learnings have been by early adopters. So with us today is the founder and CEO of QuantaVerse, David McLaughlin. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start with why AI seems to be such a workable solution for identifying financial crimes?
Sure. There are a couple reasons for that. But I think the first one is that it's a very easily integratable technology into somebody's existing ecosystem. No legacy technologies need to be ripped out. No changes of process need to be made. No models have to be rewritten. No rules have to be rewritten. No models have to be re-verified. It's really easy to integrate the technologies into somebody's existing AML financial crime mitigation program. So that's one reason. It's easy. And the second reason it's a workable and viable solution is because it's so effective. The technology itself is proven to be able to find financial criminals that existing transaction monitoring systems and existing human investigators are not able to find. And it can do that because it can obviously just evaluate massive amounts of data and see patterns in that data that existing rules-based engines won't identify. And it makes it much easier for the human investigator that follows up on those flags from a transaction monitoring engine or follows up on the results that an artificial intelligence engine creates, because it gives them the valuable, important information that they need to then be able to decide whether in fact something is amiss or not, whether a crime has been committed that they need to report. So it's easy to integrate, and it's really effective in finding things that haven't been found, and it's a very cost-effective answer as well. It can dramatically reduce the costs that an organization is spending on their AML program.
You've met with and worked with a multitude of financial crimes teams at this point and spoken at related conferences, et cetera. How confident is the industry that AI is, the solution for combating money laundering and other financial crimes? That's
a great question. And it depends on how I interpret your question for that answer. So you ask us how confident is the industry that AI is the solution. And I would tell you right now the industry is not confident that artificial intelligence is the solution. What is pervasive is that artificial intelligence and the capabilities that this brings is a part of the solution today. There is an ability to use these technologies to enhance and support the existing technologies that are in place that are being used to combat financial crimes. It makes it more effective. It can find more crimes. It can find patterns in the data that aren't found by a traditional transaction monitoring system. It can make the human investigator more effective. It can and make sure that they are focused on the parts of the investigation that really need human judgment instead of rote, repeatable tasks to do. So everybody is interested in the concept of using this technology to enhance their capabilities in the financial crime mitigation space. Personally, do I believe that this is the solution eventually to combating money laundering and financial crimes? Absolutely. I don't think the industry is there yet today, but I think with the development and the speed of development around these technologies, it's going to supplant existing technologies, and we're going to have a more effective as a industry, we're going to have a more effective financial crime mitigation capability once it is.
Interesting. So given that it sounds like there's some belief and that people are putting this on their roadmap for things they're going to start doing, where are the first places they're going to start applying AI to the problem?
Yeah, it's being applied today, and people are adopting it today for specific challenges that they are facing. For example, entity resolution and identity verification is a very hard problem for institutions and folks in the industry to do today. And you can apply these technologies specifically to that problem. So there are multiple modules or multiple instances within the AML financial crime investigation process where you can apply these technologies, and people are applying these technologies. So it's going to be adopted on almost on a module-like basis. And then eventually what we'll see happen is where it is adopted across the board to solve somebody's whole institutional financial crime analysis and mitigation challenges.
So I've heard you speak really eloquently on the problem of solving for efficiency versus the problem of solving for effectiveness and killing out the risk that is happening or is occurring because people are just missing financial crimes in their group. Can you expand upon that?
Sure. Yeah. The capabilities around artificial intelligence are going to drive both benefits. It's more effective technology and effectiveness, as in finding crimes that are going missed today, and it's a more efficient technology. It's going to drive a lot of the costs out of an existing AML program. Where we're focused on starting is on the effectiveness side. QuantaVerse can deliver both effectiveness and efficiency. What we think is critical today is focusing on the effectiveness of somebody's AML program. The reason being, there's 50% of all crimes go unidentified. And if they're not identified, then they're not investigated. If they're not investigated, then they're not reported. Think of the risks that you would have as an organization knowing that 50% of all crimes that are going through your organization never get identified. And so we believe strongly that the first role for an artificial intelligence capability is to help manage that risk, reduce that risk, find the significant crimes. We're not talking penny ante stuff. Find the significant crimes that are going through the organization that are putting the organization at risk. We're talking extinction level at risks for some organizations. Small organization that gets whacked with a big penalty because they missed crimes and law enforcement caught it, that can be seriously damaging to the stock price of the organization. And the second reason that we're big believers in focusing on that first is nobody is going to be comfortable, certainly the regulators are not going to be comfortable with creating efficiencies in a program through lower SARs, lower flags, less people, if they're not confident that the program is catching everything that is possible to catch. So we believe strongly that the first role of the implementation of this type of a technology is to prove that you can find the things that are being missed today. And then once that is in place and people are comfortable with that, then you can attack the efficiency problem. Both of them can be solved today. QuantaVerse can solve both problems today. If somebody comes to us with an efficiency challenge on their financial crime program, we can help with that efficiency problem. What I will tell them first is solve your effectiveness issue first. Get that in place. Make sure that you and the board and senior management and the regulators are comfortable that everything is being done to find the crimes that are going through the organization.
So clearly reducing risk, this is what keeps people up at night in this industry. How hard is it to get, what are the barriers to getting AI in place for something like that?
It's really limited on the effectiveness side. You can send a series of transactions, a group of transactions to QuantaVerse. We can analyze those transactions, and we can turn around a report really quickly to that effectively says whether somebody has committed a financial crime or is passing laundering money through an institution. It's a matter of getting a file of transactions. It's that easy. We can certainly put APIs in place with existing transaction monitoring systems and existing case management systems so that we can integrate to those. Those APIs are very easy to build today, very effective to build today. We can also do it on a basis where we create the UI that the investigator is eventually going to use and to manage the case, send us the transactions, APIs into the existing systems, or use a thin client web-based portal to evaluate the results. It's a really easy implementation process. On the efficiency side, technologically, it's very easy to implement this and get this up and running. The question there, of course, is how do you prove to the regulators that the flags that are coming out of your transaction monitoring engine, that the AI engine then closes down, in fact, were not financial crimes?
We've heard that a lot, right? With questions that have come up at conferences, et cetera, this fear of, I don't want to mess with my process because even if you give them the holy grail to solving this problem, the regulators, they just don't want to upset the apple cart because the regulators are going to see it as problematic.
Right.
How are you seeing people get around that, or are they going to?
Yeah, well, they will get around it. That is the struggle, especially on the efficiency side of the equation, of how they're going to get around that today. The question that I get virtually every time that I speak with somebody or get engaged with a organization about adopting these capabilities is this a black box? And of course, it's not a black box. All the trails and all the calculations and all the decisions that are made by the machine learning engine are auditable. You know why it's doing it, you know what it's done, you know the history to the decision that the machine learning engine has made, and it's very easily able to be audited, those results that it has driven. We've created a financial crime report that we deliver to our clients that essentially tells everything about the case, the players to it, the media around it, the beneficial owners to it, the transactions that may potentially be involved, what are the indications that it is a financial crime, and we deliver that financial crime report to our clients. So it's very easy to see why the decision was made to recommend further investigation or recommend no further investigation on this case. But people view this as a black box. Part of that is because the assumptions around where artificial intelligence is in its development. The technology today is not at a state. Artificial intelligence, broadly speaking, as a capability, is not at the state today where it is smarter than the humans. Theoretically, it's going to get there someday. And then theoretically, we do have a black box challenge, because even if you can audit what the machine has done, you won't be able to understand it. It's not there today. And QuantaVerse is not developing something that is going to be there today. What we're doing is taking individual specific cases of artificial intelligence and stitching those together in the process of a financial crime investigation so that the machine can go from front to back to make the decision, gather the data, analyze the data, make the decision on whether something is constitute a financial crime or not. And we're very transparent. The technology is very transparent in how it made that decision.
If someone's taking the first step into adoption, what are you finding the kind of process ends up being inside the financial institutions? It's
probably different by every financial institution based on the culture of the organization as well as its size. Obviously larger organizations are driven by multiple decision makers that have to make decisions around it. So to get around that or to help ease that, what we've done is create what we call a Chief Compliance Officer checkup. And it's really essentially a way for an organization to dip their toe in the pool of artificial intelligence. We do it with no charge to our clients or to the market. We ask for a number of transactions that they have not been flagged by their transaction monitoring systems, that have not been investigated and not been reported. And we do an analysis on those transactions. Everybody knows that every organization has some level of financial crimes that get through without being identified. Estimates by the large consulting firms are 50% of the crimes never get flagged. What we don't know is the scale and the scope of those missed crimes that are going through the organization. Is it a insignificant level or amount or type of crimes, or is it in fact things that should be keeping us up at night? What we will do with this Chief Compliance Officer checkup is take a series of transactions, give us 30 days of transactions, and we will analyze those transactions and we will give feedback to the scale and the scope. And we will give financial crime reports back on the most significant 5 crimes that we find. We don't give everything back because we don't want to burden an existing investigative staff, but we want to give enough back to let those folks that take advantage of this offer know whether they have a big problem that they have to think about or whether they have an insignificant problem that can not be worried about at this time.
Gotcha.
So that's the way we allow people to dip their toe in the pool, see the real results of artificial intelligence, take it from the theoretical to the practical, and see and be able to really get a grasp of how it can add value to their organization.
Thank you for joining this edition of On the Front Line with AI, and special thanks to David McLaughlin for his firsthand account of how financial institutions are using AI to combat financial crimes. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we encourage you to look for other podcasts in this series.